Hey guys, it's me, Althazar here, and welcome to another episode of Achieving Perfection. This time it's going to be on Ravnica at War Glory, which is the white version of it. I'm really quickly going to start off by showing my suggested decks, just in case you want to just take the decks and play, and then I'll get into everything afterwards, right? So if you're a newer player and you don't have a large Planeswalker pool, Gideon Battleforged is just fine. This is the deck that I would suggest using. So this is if you don't have an extensive collection or something like this. If you do have a more extensive collection, I would suggest that you use one of three different Planeswalkers, one of which is Hualti Radiant Champion, and this is the deck that I would use for Hualti Radiant Champion. You could also go with Tamiyo, who's going to be all the way at the bottom here. And for Tamiyo, it's this one. You could use this. This is another excellent option. Or if you are more inclined to use a Planeswalker like Teferi, Teferi is another great option for the white node. So these are my four suggestions for the white node. The first one being for newer players, and the other three if you have more extensive collections. Okay, so let's get into what is this event. Internet is really bad right now where I am. So I live in Southern California and we've got all these crazy fires going on right now. So getting into anything online is kind of a pain. But anyways, Ravnica at War Glory. So Glory is the white iteration of this event, meaning that we're going to get the infinite shield white support, and we're going to get a node that you have to use a white planeswalker. And so we're going to be taking a look at the white node here. So it's got 3 different nodes total for the event, and the white node is down here. So the objectives for the white node are going to be to cast 3 or more cards with Proliferate during the fight, and to summon 8 or more knights, soldiers, or warriors during the fight. The summon means that they can be tokens, you don't have to cast them, and so the tokens are probably going to be your best bet. The permanent support for this one is actually kind of scary. So the permanent support for the white version of this says that whenever you match the support's gem or gain 4 or more life, reinforce the support. Then at the end of your turn, if this support has 8 or more reinforcements, fetch the first enchant support from your library, move it to the board, not a big deal. Then create X Vigilant Angel tokens, where X is the number on this support's reinforcements. So that means that you're going to be getting 8 4/4 flying Vigilant Angel tokens, which is a 32/32 flying Vigilant Angel token, which is quite substantial and scary. So you want to have answers for that. You want to make sure that you can do something to get rid of them, or just to make it so it doesn't happen. Now, that being said, I really didn't encounter this much last time I played this event, but then again, the last time I played this event, it was before the update, and that was when it required 10 or more reinforcements. So let's get into my suggestions for the decks, right? And we'll start with the simple decks. We'll work our way up. But before we get there, I want to go over the 2 cards that I think are the most important to have for this event. And those 2 cards are Karn's Bastion, and if you can get it, March of the Multitudes. Now, March of the Multitudes is incredibly important here because it makes the 8 summoned soldiers really easy, because you can get off a March of the Multitudes and just one cast of this card completes that objective, which is fantastic. And Karn's Bastion I really like because it's a land, and it's the only land with Proliferate. And I really like that it's a land with Proliferate because you can fetch it with things like Cavalier of Thorns or with Death Sprout, and it'll automatically get cast and you get credit for the objective. Now, be really careful if you're using something like Golos. Golos fetches and puts it directly into play, but that does not count as casting it. So don't use Golos and Karn's Bastion for that part of the objective. So yeah, March of the Multitudes, Karn's Bastion, those are, I think, the 2 most important cards to have. Now, if you don't have a great collection, you probably don't have a lot of Planeswalkers. Gideon Battleforged is a solidly good Planeswalker. So let's go over some really good options for cards to put in a Gideon deck for this node. So Karn's Bastion is an obvious answer for getting rid of the Proliferate objective. And the other card that I would throw in for the proliferate objective is Wanderer's Strike. Now, this card is pretty decent because it serves as removal, and it's going to help you achieve the proliferate. There aren't really any good cards with proliferate, so that is pretty unfortunate. So if you want to take a look, proliferate, right? They're terrible, right? And show all cards. Nah, I have him. Whatever. So they all suck. They're all bad. So given that, yeah, you got to make the best with what you've got, and the best of what you've got is Wanderer's Strike and Karn's Bastion. Now, the other nice thing about them is that they also have partner, so you can use them when the partner objectives come around, but that's not for this event. Precinct Captain is a great card for this node because every time it attacks, it's going to make 2 lifelink soldiers, and it's a soldier itself. So not only are you getting the soldier tokens, but you're getting a soldier. It's going to be making soldier tokens every turn, and it's a card that everyone should be able to get because it's an event reward. So if you don't have this, target it, get it, and then you're going to be pretty set for that soldier objective. Another great card to have is Court of Calling, another event reward, and in conjunction with Precinct Captain, you can get these 2 from events, and it's going to make getting the soldier objective a lot easier, right? And same goes for Knights and Warriors. There aren't a lot of Knights in Standard right now, especially with Dominaria cycling out for this particular event. Another great card for achieving the soldier objective is Hasda Marshal, especially with the Captain, because when this guy attacks, if you've got 3 or more creatures or creature reinforcements, you're going to make 2 more of those lifelink soldier tokens. And so with the Marshal and the Precinct Captain, you can be making 4 tokens a turn, and with that, you can achieve your objective really quickly. The Marshal is also a soldier, so you really just need to get the 4 tokens once, and you're good, especially because the Captain will have already made 3. You play the Marshal, that's 4. You get the 4, that's 8, and you're done. Knight of Autumn is another great card for this, and it's a great card for it because it's going to be a knight. It's going to destroy supports, which is really important because this is a white node, and there's a lot of nasty white supports. And it also gains 4 life, which happens to be the amount that you need to gain in order to increase the support value. So great card all around for it. Ancestral Blade is not a bad choice either for Gideon, because not only is it going to make you 2 soldier tokens for the soldier objective, but it's going to empower your first creature with +2/+2. And since Gideon is going to be giving creatures vigilance and therefore making them block, it's nice to give them that little extra power boost. God's Willing is going to serve in the same sort of line in that it's going to protect your first vigilant creature, and on top of protecting them, it's going to draw you a card. And this is really important because white does not have good access to card draw. So if you're running Gideon, you're going to have to play very defensively. The final things that I put in are other sources of removal. I find that removal is incredibly important. Despark is nice to have because there's some really nasty Vanguards out there. And since Vanguards are so accessible from the Fiblethip event, you want to make sure that you're able to defend against them. And Conclave Tribunal is just going to serve as creature exile. So this is what I would do if you don't have a super big collection. If you wanted to take a quick look at what are some other cards that you could use that make Knight tokens, there aren't very many of them, unfortunately. And I'm saying Knight tokens because those are going to be your best bet for the summon objective. Gideon's Phalanx is an excellent option for this because you're going to be getting Vigilant tokens and you're getting 4 of them for 1 cast, so it's a pretty useful card. It's from Origins, and so hopefully you're already targeting Origins. Conclave Guildmage is pretty decent, but because you get the creatures based on that activation, it's really boom or bust, so that's something to watch out for. Knight of the White Orchid can work pretty nicely in that it has first strike and it converts gems and it's a knight, so that works really well with Gideon empowering it. So that card can be pretty good. And another card that is pretty easy to get that is pretty decent is Knightly Valor. So this is going to give you a knight token and it's going to empower and give your first creature vigilance. So these are all things that'll help keep you alive, but they're pretty easy to get, right? And then there's also Assure. Assure is pretty good. Assure's flip side is going to make 3 tokens, and they're all 2/2s, so it's a 6/6 vigilance for 8, which is very strong. And on the first side, you can give one of your creatures vigilance, which is whatever, but prevent damage, which is amazing. So since you're going to be pumping out so many vigilant cards, you're going to find that they're going to die a lot to strong cards. And so it's really nice to be able to find ways to keep them alive. So this is Gideon. Right? Now, apart from Gideon, I think that your best bet is to go for a green-white walker, and the green-white is important because then you can include Death Sprout, and if you have it, Cavalier of Thorns. And I've already talked about why these are so good, but basically they're going to fetch Karn's Bastion, they're going to bring it out, and they're going to double serve as removal, playing Knights, and the objective for Proliferate. March of the Multitudes, we've gone over, it's going to go ahead, give you a bunch of soldiers. Nissa's Revelation is going to fix a problem that Gideon has in that it's going to provide you with card draw. So white doesn't really have good access to card draw. Green honestly doesn't have great access, but Nissa's Revelation is decent, and it's going to give you 20 life. You'll see that I've added Nissa's Pilgrimage to this. It's important that it is not a land, and it converts gems. So that's really nice. And it's important that it's not a land because of Death Sprout fetching lands and Cavalier of Thorns fetching lands, and we only want them fetching the Bastion. The other cards in the deck, I've shown Assure, I've got Killer Instinct in here. This is just going to fetch Cavalier of Thorns to get Karn's Bastions, and the fetching is going to count toward the summon objective. And finally, Casualties of War. This is my board wipe that I'm using, and it destroys some of everything, so I really like it. This is an excellent option. You will probably pretty easily achieve perfection in white if you use that Hualti deck. The other white-green option is Tamiyo. And I know you could use Ajani, so Ajani works too, but I prefer these options more. So Tamiyo is nice in that she gives you access to more card draw, which is really important. And so you can add things like Day's Undoing, which I really like. I like it more than the blue Finale because Tamiyo generally struggles with mana gains, and so it costs less to use, and I like that. And it also gets rid of some what your opponent has, and Flood of Tears, which I love for this. And I love Flood of Tears for this because it acts as board wipe. So if you accelerate too quickly, you can wipe your own board, and then it automatically plays something from your hand. So this allows us to use Tristani because we won't kill too fast. And so we can Flood of Tears, and in using this Flood of Tears, when it returns something, we can generally try and make it so that that thing that it returns with full mana is going to be the thing that we need for our objective. Now, Tristani is going to make 2 soldier tokens, so that's going to act toward that. And Karn's Bastion is going to work toward the Proliferate. So this is going to be a very well-rounded deck. It's going to be pretty easy to achieve objectives with this one too, I think. And then the last one, and this one doesn't use green, but nonetheless is incredibly strong because Teferi is so good. You're going to see, actually let's go over here. There's going to be a lot of tokens in this. And since Teferi's first ability is going to kill tokens, that makes his first actually a lot more useful than it generally is. And his other abilities are pretty strong too. His mana gains are excellent. And so in the same token, you're going to see a lot of the same cards, but you'll see that I've added Hallowed Fountain. And this is because I'm not using Death Sprout or the Cavalier of Thorns here. So I'm able to use another land. And then all the other cards here are cards that I've gone over, but this is going to be another excellent option, and this will be a really powerful option. So this would be an excellent choice too. Now, what are some other cards that you could use for this event, right? So if we go to the general selection of cards, is there anything else that I would suggest for this? So if we take a look at Proliferate as a whole, no, I would not. These are terrible. Yes, I know that Ajani's +1 is going to gain 4 life, but no, don't do this to yourself. Ajani is bad, really bad. Other than that, the rest of these Proliferate cards are largely pretty bad. If you don't have the cards that I said and you have to use some of the others, just make the best with what you have. Evolution Sage can be pretty decent. If you're playing a lot of lands, you can make a sort of cool gate deck with it that's going to proliferate a bunch of times and give you a bunch of Planeswalker mana. Other than that, not great options. So, yuck. Now, we've gone over soldiers. I'm going to really quickly show you the knight. Oh, I've shown the knight options. The warriors, right? So, that is good spelling on the keyboard. So for warriors, we don't really have a whole lot of great token options. So I would not advise going warrior for the objective to complete with warriors, right? So don't do that. So hopefully you're able to use one of these decks and they'll help you to achieve perfection. And good luck. And I hope to see you in the event and in the next video. Have a good one.